Night shifts have a different atmosphere. During the day, buildings feel normal. People are constantly moving. Doors open and close. Phones ring. Conversations echo through hallways. But after midnight, that energy disappears. Same places suddenly feel quieter and much larger. Many people who work overnight shifts say the same thing. The silence can sometimes feel unsettling. Not because anything is happening, but because it feels like something could. The following stories come from people who experienced something strange while working the night shift. None of them were expecting anything unusual to happen. For them, it started as just another quiet night at work, till something changed. About 3 years ago, I worked as a janitor in a small regional hospital. It wasn't a huge medical center, just a 2-floor building that handled routine emergencies and overnight patients. My shift ran from 11 p.m. until 7 a.m. Most nights were extremely quiet. After midnight, the emergency room slowed down, visitors left, and most of the hospital went into a kind of overnight lull. My job was mostly cleaning hallways and empty rooms. I worked alone, which I didn't really mind. I actually preferred the quiet. But there was one part of the hospital I always felt uncomfortable in: the old East Wing hallway. That section of the building had been partially shut down years earlier. A few storage rooms were still used, but most of the patient rooms were empty. Every night I had to mop that hallway around 2 a.m. It was always quiet there, too quiet. One night I finished cleaning the main lobby and headed down the East Wing like usual. The lights were dimmed in that hallway, and the motion sensors would slowly brighten the lights as you walked through. I pushed my cleaning cart down the corridor and started mopping. Everything was normal, till I reached the far end of the hallway. That's when I heard something. A door closing, not loudly, just a soft click. At first I assumed it was a nurse checking one of the storage rooms, but when I looked down the hallway, no one was there. The door at the very end of the corridor was slightly open. I remember staring at it for a few seconds, because I was almost certain that door had been closed when I walked in. Still, I figured maybe someone had stepped inside and I just didn't notice. So I finished mopping and pushed my cart back toward the main hallway. As I passed the door again, I glanced inside. The room was empty, just shelves and old equipment. I shrugged it off and went back to work. But the next night, something stranger happened. I was cleaning the same hallway again, same time, around 2 a.m. And as I turned the corner with my cart, I noticed something immediately. The door at the end of the corridor was open again. Wider this time, the room was dark inside. I stood there for a moment, trying to remember if I had left it open the night before. Maybe I had. Still, something about it bothered me. So I walked down the hallway and pushed the door closed. It clicked shut, and I turned around and went back to my cart. I had only taken maybe 10 steps when I heard it again. Click. I froze. Slowly, I turned around. The door was open again, not fully, just a few inches, enough to see the darkness inside. I remember standing there in the hallway, completely still, staring at it, trying to think of a logical explanation. Air pressure, a loose latch, maybe something blocking the door? But I had just pushed it closed, and the hallway was completely empty. After a few seconds, I walked back and shut it again. This time I stayed there for a minute. The door didn't move. Eventually I finished cleaning and left the hallway. The next morning I mentioned it to one of the nurses. She didn't laugh. She said something that made me feel even more uncomfortable. She said, "Yeah, that door does that sometimes." I asked if maintenance had checked it. She nodded. Then she added quietly, "They replaced the latch last year." I asked what the problem was. She said something that stuck with me. She said the strange thing wasn't that the door opened. It was when it opened. Almost every report about that door happened during the same hour, between 2 and 3 a.m., and almost always when someone was alone in the hallway. I kept working that job for another 6 months, and I never cleaned that wing without watching that door. Because every once in a while, when I passed the end of that corridor, I would hear the same soft sound. Click. A few years ago, I worked the overnight shift at a small gas station just outside my town. It wasn't in a busy area. The station sat near a highway exit with a few restaurants and a motel nearby. During the day it was pretty active, but after midnight traffic slowed down a lot. My shift was 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. Most nights were predictable. A few truck drivers would stop in. Sometimes people passing through town would grab coffee or snacks. But there were long stretches where the place felt completely empty. Around 1:30 a.m. was usually the quietest part of the shift. One night during that time, I noticed a car pull into the lot. It was a dark sedan. I couldn't see much detail because the lights inside the store reflected off the glass. The car parked near one of the pumps, but the driver didn't get out. At first, I didn't think anything of it. People sometimes sat in their cars to check their phones or finish a call before coming inside. But after about 5 minutes, the car still hadn't moved. The engine was still running. The driver was just sitting there. Eventually, I walked over to the window to get a better look. The car was positioned at an angle where I could barely see the driver's silhouette. He was facing the store, just sitting there. I figured maybe he was waiting for someone, so I went back to stocking shelves. About 10 minutes later, I looked outside again. The car was gone. I didn't even notice it leaving. The whole thing seemed strange, but I forgot about it pretty quickly. Until the next night, around the exact same time, 1:30 a.m., the same car pulled into the lot again. Same pump, same position. And again, the driver stayed inside. This time I watched for a while. The engine stayed on, but the driver never got out. After a few minutes, I walked to the door and stepped outside. As soon as I did, the headlights turned on, and the car slowly pulled away. It didn't speed off, just drove back toward the highway. At that point, I started feeling uneasy, but I convinced myself it was probably just someone killing time before heading somewhere. Then it happened a third night. Same car, same time. That's when I started paying close attention. The driver never stepped out, never pumped gas, never came inside. He just sat there, watching the store. The weirdest part was the timing. The car always showed up between 1:30 and 1:40 a.m., never earlier, never later. After about a week of this, curiosity got the better of me. The next time the car pulled in, I decided to walk outside immediately. The moment I stepped out of the door, the headlights came on again. But this time, the car didn't leave right away. It stayed there, the engine idling. I started walking toward the pump. I didn't plan on confronting the driver or anything. I just wanted to see his face. But before I got close enough, the car slowly began reversing. Then it turned toward the exit and drove away. I watched it disappear down the highway. That was the last time I saw it, at least, at the gas station. About 3 weeks later, I was leaving work after my shift ended. The sun had just started coming up. I got into my car and began driving home. My route took me through a quiet residential area a few miles from the station. As I turned onto my street, I noticed a car parked across the road, a dark sedan. The engine was off, but someone was inside. I drove past slowly, and for just a second, I saw the driver turn his head, looking directly at me. I kept driving, trying not to react. When I pulled into my driveway and looked back toward the street, the car was already gone. I never saw it again after that. But to this day, I still wonder something. If that driver had been watching the gas station all those nights, how long had he been following me home? About 4 years ago, I worked overnight security for a distribution warehouse on the edge of the city. The job was simple. I worked from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m., monitoring security cameras and doing hourly patrols around the building. The warehouse was massive, long aisles of storage racks filled with boxed equipment and shipping pallets. During the day, forklifts and workers moved constantly through the building. At night, though, the place felt completely different. Silent, empty, and huge. Most of my shift was spent inside the security office watching the camera feeds. There were 12 cameras covering the loading docks, hallways, and interior aisles. Around 2:15 a.m., one night a motion alert appeared on one of the monitors. It was for camera 7, which covered a section of the loading dock area. This wasn't unusual. Sometimes wind or drifting snow would trigger the sensors outside. I opened the camera feed. The loading dock looked empty. Bright floodlights illuminated the concrete platform, and beyond that was just the dark parking lot. Like nothing moved. After about a minute, the motion alert stopped. I assumed it was just a false trigger. But about 10 minutes later, another alert appeared. Same camera, same spot. Again, when I opened the feed, nothing was there. This happened 3 more times over the next half hour. That's when I decided to go outside and check it in person. I grabbed my flashlight and walked through the side door that led to the dock area. The cold air hit immediately. The entire lot was quiet. No vehicles, no people. I slowly walked along the edge of the dock, shining my flashlight across the ground and toward the storage containers nearby. There were no footprints in the dust, no signs that anyone had been there. After a few minutes, I went back inside. Another 20 minutes passed without anything happening.